my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I am answering your questions. I put out a post on my community tab and over on my Instagram asking for you to submit any questions you had. I am celebrating 3 years on booktube. I posted my very first video March the 24th, 2022. I actually posted 2 videos that day. I posted my March TBR, yeah, it was a little late, and I posted my February wrap-up, which again was a little late. But I'd been sitting on those videos for a while, kind of deciding, am I actually going to do this? Am I going to take the plunge and post them? And then I decided, let's just do it. Then I posted again on the 27th, the 28th, the 30th of April, or of March. And then April, I get into kind of a regular posting schedule with so many days in between. And I've kept that pretty much regular posting schedule. I think it might have been June when I decided kind of my exact schedule. And then I kind of veered from the schedule when I did Bookmas that first year, 2022, and then I didn't do it in 2023, and then I did Bookmas again this past December, but I didn't post every single day. It was every other day. And then January and February of this year, I decided I was kind of trying something new with a different posting schedule. I decided I didn't like it. I'm going back to my normal posting schedule because it was just easier on my brain. So that posting schedule is I post on the 5th, the 10th, the 15th, the 20th, the 25th, and the 30th. Because those are just dates I can easily remember and I can keep on top of. And then any videos that come out on any other days, then those are just bonus videos. And I like that because then I'm not tied down to every single Tuesday and every single Saturday, because what if I don't have a video idea, or what if, something happens up? So that has worked for me, and that's the way I'm going to keep it for now. Because I decided January and February, that did not work for me because it was like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to have a video on Thursday and I'm not ready for it. Yeah. Whereas I know with the date, it's easier. Okay, so all that ramble to get into your questions. So as I said, I posted on YouTube and Instagram asking for your questions. I was going to take all those questions, put them into a Word doc, and then sort by topic, like if they were like family, book related, personal questions, that kind of stuff. But I did not do that. Instead, I took screenshots and I'm just going to go through them as they came in, and that's how we're going to do it. And if we get up to a duplicate question, because there are a couple that are very similar to one another, I'll let you know. Well, I've already answered that question. So let me find the very first one. Here we go. And this person, Susan, was very sweet. She said, yes, I have a question. You may have addressed this in previous videos before I started watching, so please forgive me if it's a repeat. How did you and your husband meet? Is he also Canadian? Do you have any siblings, and are your parents nearby? Okay, so that's a lot in one question, but that is fine. Okay, so how did we meet? I moved quite a bit throughout my lifetime. Do I start with this? Yeah, I think so. It was going to kind of go into another question, but we're just going to put it all together here. So I moved quite a bit in my life, and I'm currently living in Ontario, Canada, and I was actually born in Ontario. Then I lived the first 10 years of my life in Ontario, 10, 11, something like that. I don't know how old, maybe 12. I don't know. Then we moved out to Alberta. We were there for a number of years. Then we moved to Saskatchewan, and we were there for a number of years. I went to school in Winnipeg, college in Winnipeg for a year. Then I went to college in Saskatchewan for 4 more years. And during my last year of college in Saskatchewan, my parents moved back to Ontario. So when I graduated, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I decided to move to my parents' house in Ontario. And then I started applying for jobs. and I got a job offer in a town in Ontario, not in my parents' out of town, so I moved there. Then my boss came to me about a month, I would say, maybe a month and a half of me working there, and saying, I have a very personal question for you. And I'm like, okay. Do you have a boyfriend or are you seeing anybody? Because I have a guy for you that I'd like to introduce you to. Okay. And that guy was my husband. And so, yeah, that is how we met, was through my boss at the time. And then my boss did our wedding because my boss was a pastor. And so he did our wedding with my father, who was also a pastor. So, yeah, that is how we met. Was we always blamed it on Bob. And he is Canadian. My husband is born and raised in the same city, has never moved out of the, town boundaries. He has moved within the town. It's kind of a joke in our life is that he lived in the south end, then he moved to the middle, and now we live on the north end of town. And still within town though. So he's like, I can't move again, got nowhere else to go in the north. But yeah. Okay, so that is how we met. And yes, I do have one sibling. I have a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me, and he lives in the big city of Toronto. And he is married and has 3 kids, and they own and operate their own Christian gift shop and bookstore. And Agape Christian Marketplace is what Jared owns. And so, yeah. My parents, my mom lives about 40 minutes from me in the winter, and in the summer she has a trailer that she spends all summer at, and that is about 40 minutes from my brother. So she's closer to me in the winter and then goes closer to him over the summer. And my dad passed away in August of 2008 of cancer. So Cora asked, what is the first book you remember reading and loving? I don't know. I have been a reader my whole life. And family vacations, I'm reading. We have pictures in scrapbooks. For example, my grandmother was with us and we went to the water park at West Side Mission Mall as kids. And I don't know, I might have been 13, 14 years old kind of thing. And I am sitting by the pool with a book. And my brother's swimming. And yeah, and that is very, very common that I was always with a book. We have multiple pictures of that. And so, I don't know what the first book was, because my dad was a reader as well, and he really encouraged us to read. And what I remember reading, and just like reading all of them that I could get my hands on, was The Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley. So Sweet Valley High, Sweet Valley Twins, all those books. Those are kind of the 2 series that I remember the most. I know I read Nancy Drew. I'm pretty sure I read some of the Hardy Boys. My mom tells me we read Famous Five. So a lot of the kid mystery stuff. Yeah. But really in my mind, it's the Babysitter Club and Sweet Valley series. The girls. I really wish I still had my Babysitter Club books. But needless to say, I do not. And she also asked, does your husband like to read? No, he is not a reader. He will support me though and go to bookstores with me and allow me to look and stuff. So yeah, but he's not a reader himself. Okay, have I ever considered writing a book of your own? No, not at all. I do not like English. I do not like writing. Spelling was not one of my best subjects. And English in general was not one of my best subjects. Like all the noun, pronoun, adjective, verb, like I was so lost. Give me math any day. Yeah, Not, I mean, not calculus and stuff, but you know, I can add and subtract and divide and, you know, yeah. Okay. Then she says, what hobbies do you have outside of reading? Well, reading is my main hobby nowadays. I don't do pretty much anything else other than read and watch sports. And usually I'm reading while I'm watching sports. But I do digital scrapbook. I scrapbooked physically, like paper wise, like physically, for years. Like kind of end of high school through college, beginning years of our marriage, like for a number of years. And then I discovered digital scrapbooks where I could do everything online and then get a photo album printed. But it still looks like a scrapbook because it's got all the embellishments and stuff, just with shadows and stuff. Yeah, I should grab an album, but yeah. So I have tried to do an album for every vacation that we've gone on. I'm a little bit behind. And I have 22, 23, and 24 that I haven't done ones for. I've started them, working on them, but reading has really taken over. And yeah. Yeah. And then that is like kind of my main hobby that I would say I have outside of reading. And I really need to get back into it because I love when they're done and completing and flipping through. And I love taking pictures. I love looking back on pictures. And the other hobby would be traveling, but we don't do it enough. I mean, we have to work and live and yeah, so we can't always go away. Okay. So the other part of her question is, I know you really enjoy hockey and show jumping. Have you participated in these sports yourself? Yes and no. Not competitively, not on a team. So I have skated and I've played hockey with friends. So I've skated with a stick. More when I was younger and teenage years. I don't know the last time I skated. Me and my husband have been married 22 years. Wow. Almost 22 years. I had to do the math there. And we have never gone skating together. So, yeah. I'm much more of a watcher when it comes to hockey. And for show jumping, I have ridden horses. Apparently, horses was my obsession when I was really, really young. Like, it was like one of the first words I said. Really young. My parents moved to a hobby farm when I was 2 years old. We got a horse. I think I probably was 3. So, I mean, we got a pony. And I rode for a number of years. I took riding lessons, and I know that I started getting into jumping. And the very first time I jumped, I fell off the horse. And I mean, you get back up and try again, just like the saying, and I did get back up and try again. And thankfully, I mean, I was a little kid, like I might have been 6 years old at the time. I don't really know. And, you know, there might have been like one bar off the ground kind of thing, so it wasn't a high jump or anything. But that is my experience with jumping. But I rode for a number of years through those lessons until we sold the farm when I was about 8, 9 years old, somewhere in that age range. And then we moved to the big city of Toronto. So I did not have a horse nearby or anything. And then, you know, kind of interest change as I got older. I still love horses. And I rode a bit as a teenager. And then me and my husband went to Kentucky 2015, maybe 2011. I don't know. A number of years ago. And we went trail riding then. And that had been my first time on a horse since like high school. And I mean, I was scared when I first got on it, but it was really fun. And I would go more. I just don't have the same opportunity, or I don't seek out the opportunities enough. or have somebody to go with. So yeah, no, but I love to watch it. And I've been to Spruce Meadows in Calgary once in person to be able to watch a lot of the competitions for the Masters event. Like, that's a highlight of one of our vacations, was going to that, because I'd watched the competition on TV for a number of years. And now I still continue to watch it on TV when I can. And then I found more YouTube channels that stream a lot of the events. So I have been able to watch a lot. But really, hockey has taken over a lot of that watching. But a lot of them don't really conflict with each other a lot. So it works out well. When hockey's not on, I can watch snow jumping. When it's not on, I can watch hockey. So, yeah. Okay, then Christine asks, were you raised a Christian, or did it happen later in life? So I consider myself as raised in a Christian home. Now, my parents did not become Christians until I was, I want to say 6 years old, maybe. But I do remember at the hobby farm, we had a United Church across the road. And I remember going there for Sunday school, and I have like the pin for attendance and everything. So I remember like me and my brother going there, but my parents weren't active in church. My dad had grown up in church. My mom had not. And, you know, as a young adults, like 20s, 30s. Okay. And then something happened, and they came into a church. They became Christians, and our life changed. So they became pastors of various churches. And so I was a pastor's kid for a number of years until my dad passed away, and then my mom took retirement. And so, yeah, I consider myself being growing up in a Christian home. And because of that, I feel like I became a Christian very young and lived that lifestyle and continue to live that lifestyle because it was ingrained in me. And I made a personal decision, probably at 7, 8 years old. And then, you know, as typical, you rededicated your life, you know, as in your teens, when you think, oh, maybe I'm not, right? And yeah, and then after high school, I went to Bible college, and then I transferred to another Bible college, and then I started working at a church, and yeah, it's my life. And then that leads into the next question she asked is, what job do I do outside of booktube? So immediately after college, I became a receptionist and bookkeeper at a church. But the church also had a family services program that happening, and they operated a thrift store like it was a large operation. And I was there for 20 years. I worked my way up to business manager. And then a few years ago, I left there, and I am now office administrator and bookkeeper at another church. Okay, and then she asked, do you plan on doing a bookshelf tour? I have done a couple bookshelf tours on my channel, so I will link them below, but my shelves have changed. So I did one shortly after I started my channel. Then last March, I got some more bookshelves. I got these corners, so I expanded my bookshelf. And so I did a vlog of the setup and that, so then I did a bookshelf tour then. But even since then, it's changed. I've reorganized. I've obviously added books. I need to stop buying because I'm running out of room again. But yeah. So yes, I will at some point. Okay. Then Tara asked, I love your travel videos. Are you planning any trips this year to the lower 48 states? Well, thank you for loving my travel videos because I love traveling. And I really enjoy having the video to look back at and reflect on. And yeah, sometimes I don't like vlogging in the moment because I don't like vlogging in public, but it's getting better. And it's easier when we're not around back my familiar area, and I'm not going to run into somebody I know, most likely. And are we planning on any trips to the States? At this point in time, no, we do not have any planned. And yeah, I don't want to get all political on this, okay? But let's just say I live in Canada. And we have this thing going on between Canada and the United States with the tariffs and stuff. And my husband works for an American automaker company in town. And yeah, it's kind of a fragile thing of what's going to happen. And so we are thinking we will travel within Canada this year just because everything is so unknown. However, that doesn't mean we're ruling it out, because I love traveling to the States, and it is cheaper to travel to the States than within Canada. But every few years, we try to do a Canadian trip, and then, we do. So when we're traveling, or throughout a year for our vacation, we usually do one like kind of small, like little road trip, a few days away somewhere. And then we do kind of what we consider our big vacation. So, and really that just means we're going for a longer period of time and we're traveling a distance somewhere. So that two that I have vlogged is we did a road trip down to Myrtle Beach, over to the Smoky Mountains, and up through Kentucky and back home. So we covered 10 states in that trip, and that was 13 days. And then the other trip that I have vlogged is we spent a week in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or approximately a week. We drove down, drove back up. And so, yeah. But I mean, we have done a road trip through Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Quebec. And we flew into Vegas one year, rented a car, and then we stayed in Vegas, but we drove through Utah and Arizona and saw the Grand Canyon and stuff and back to Vegas. So that's kind of, we like to do that kind of thing, not spend a whole period of time somewhere. Now, we have gone to Disney and stayed at Disney on site for a week, and that was like our whole vacation. That was fun. But I also like seeing like scenery changing throughout. So we flew to PEI one year, rented a car, and drove the whole island in a week. I mean, it's not a huge island, but we stayed in 4 or 5 hotels over that week. So yeah, we love to do that and just kind of see little bits of every place, because then we get to see a little bit more, right? So right now we are planning probably to do our big vacation in September. And I just realized I forgot one of the major trips. And for our 15th wedding anniversary, we went to England and did a bus tour of England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. And that was amazing. And that was 15 days, but it was our anniversary, like our 15th wedding anniversary. And that was amazing. My husband had never traveled overseas before that. When we first got together, my husband didn't really travel. He would drive down to Florida with his family because he has an uncle who lives in Florida. And then he would go see his grandparents who lived in Michigan or just, southern Ontario. And so, yeah, they didn't really travel a whole lot. And I said to him, we're traveling. We need to go away at least once a year and go away, like actually a big trip. My parents are both from England originally, so we went over to England, I want to say probably every couple years, because my grandparents were there, my aunt and uncles were there, majority of the extended family. One year when I was, again, I think I was 8 years old, we went to New Zealand because I have an uncle that lives there, and we rented a trailer, like an RV, and drove the island. And so I think that's where my love for road tripping kind of started. My parents were big RVers, but it was a lot of time. You drive to one place, you spend the week at that place, and that's not me. And I also am not an RVer. I like the comforts of a hotel. So yeah, we love to travel. We don't really have anywhere planned yet, but as I said, we are thinking September, and I told my husband that we are flying east or we're flying west. And he said, well, can't we do a road trip in Ontario? No. We're flying east or west. I really want to go back to PEI, but I'm also like, I want to see new things as well. So we'll see. I also really want to go to Alberta, but yeah. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. We don't have anything planned at this moment. Okay. That was a really long answer for that short little question. Okay, so then she says, I love books that give me ideas when traveling. So when I plan a trip, I look for Christian fiction books set in my planned locations. If you do this as well, could you add books to the coordinating places you visit? So that totally gave me a video series idea. So I am going to start a video series of books set in certain places that I have been, and then with that I will show pictures of our visit to that place. So for example, The Edge of Belonging by Amanda Cox, which is up there, is set in Tennessee. And we have been to Chattanooga, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. We've driven through Nashville. We haven't actually really visited much of Nashville. Took a picture at the Grand Ole Opry. That was about our extent. And so, yeah. So I thought, well, I can show pictures of that and talk about books that are all set in Tennessee. A lot of the books I read are set in North Carolina. So I can do like kind of the same thing. So that's going to be a video series coming up. Thank you, Tara, for that idea. Then she just says, thanks for the work you put into your channel. I love your channel. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, then Cheryl asks, have you always lived in Canada? And what are the best and worst things about living there? So yes, I have always lived in Canada. I was born in Canada. I've always lived here. I've thought about moving, but no. So the worst things about living in Canada is I hate winter. And I hate being cold because I'm always cold as it is. And I don't like snow. So I hate winter. And we get winter, especially where I live. I mean, we had probably the most snow we've had since I lived in town here this past winter. And not every winter is as bad. As I said, this one was a particularly bad winter, but not a fan. So that is the worst thing about living in Canada. Now, when we lived in Saskatchewan, it was colder than what it is here, but it was a different type of cold, and I was still miserable. I still don't like winter, but that's the worst thing about winter, or about Canada, is winter. The other thing is, it is so expensive to travel within Canada, like to fly within Canada. It is so much cheaper. I could fly from Toronto to London, Ontario for cheaper than I can fly from London or from Toronto to Calgary, Alberta. Yeah. So a lot of times we have crossed the border and flew out of Buffalo, New York, or out of Detroit, Michigan and stuff to fly like to Atlanta or to Las Vegas or to Florida or something because it's cheaper. So yeah, that's a really downside. The good side is it's beautiful. There is so much to see within our country, but it's spread out, but it is beautiful. Like Alberta, the Rockies, amazing. BC, you can go and watch whales. Now, my husband has not done that with me. I've been to BC, but my husband has not been. So that's a possibility. PEI has like the red clay beaches, just beautiful cliffs. Yeah, Newfoundland, you can see icebergs off. Like, it's such a varied country. So if you can travel, do it. Like, yeah. I mean, we have Niagara Falls. And personally, the Canadian Falls, Horseshoe Falls, is much prettier and much bigger than the American Falls. And you can't even really see the American Falls on the American side. You got to come over to the Canadian side to actually see the American Falls. So, yeah. Okay. I'm not dissing America at all because I love America. And there are certain things that we cannot get in Canada. So we come across the border just to get them. So we're all friends. Okay, so then another question is, why do you collect Coca-Cola merchandise and how did the collection start? So me and my husband were just talking about this tonight because I said, how did it start? And he's like, I don't know. I blame Bob. Yes, the Bob that introduced us. And I don't know for sure if he's to blame or not. Because before he was a pastor, he delivered Coca-Cola. So he had a lot of Coca-Cola merchandise. But I don't think it was really him. So growing up, I was a Coca-Cola fan. My brother was a Pepsi fan. And as you know, Coke, Pepsi, those fans, they have their opinions, right? And I don't know if you remember, back in the 90s, you'd go into a mall and they would have like a taste test, and can you tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi and which one is which? So we were always competing with that. And this one knew which one was Coke. And I love just the look of it, like the red with the Coke bottle. Like it's iconic. I love it. And very early when my husband and I started dating, I found out he was a Coke fan as well. Okay, we're good. No more fight in the house, or there won't be a fight in the house. And then we started collecting. I don't even know how we started collecting, but we picked up like one item or something, and people knew that we liked Coke. And then we started getting gifts. And every Christmas, every birthday, every anniversary, we would get something Coke. And the collection just kept growing and kept growing. And it got to the point that, and I mean, we were just as bad. We would go into antique stores and look, and I was like, oh, we don't have that. That's really cool. And so, yeah. And then it got to the point that we had to tell people, please don't buy us any more Coke stuff. We're good. And we have started getting rid of some of duplicates, not all of them, and some of them have really fond memories, so like we have memories attached to them, and some people have ignored our rule of like our request not to, but they're allowed to. Because, for example, we got a Coke bottle from Israel when our brother-in-law went over there. And so he brought it back for us. And so just knowing that he was thinking of us while there and brought it back, and it's something that we probably will not get ourselves. So, yeah. We have some of our favorite pieces. I will insert pictures here. Is Andrew has a Coke button. It's about 2 feet by 2 feet, maybe? Yeah, I think so. Circle. As I said, I'll insert a picture here. In our garage, at the end of it, garage, did I say that right? We have an old Coca-Cola sign from a store that my parents bought for my husband's birthday. I don't know, maybe like shortly after, because we were still in the old house at the time, so maybe like 2005, 2006, something like that. And they got it for $5 at an auction house. And it is 4 feet by 8 feet, maybe. Like, it's the whole wall of our garage. And so, yeah, so that's really cool. I really like that. So we have a friend who works at a grocery store. And one day he knocked on our door and said, I have a gift for you. And we're like, okay, what? And so then he starts carrying this big thing in. It was like, what is that? Because he had it covered, you couldn't tell. And it is a Coca-Cola display, wooden crates. And he asked them what they were doing with it when they were taking it down, and they were going to throw it out. And he's like, I know somebody that will take that. And so we have that, and we've displayed some of our Coke bottles on it. And yeah, it's really cool. And so we have some unique items like that. But I don't know what the first item was or how we even started collecting, but then it's just kind of grown, and we have really kind of tried to control ourselves now because we're running out of space on the shelves that we have dedicated for it. I hope you have a cup of coffee or something because this is going to be a long video. I do not, because it's almost 10 o'clock at night here, so I just have a juice, but yeah, hope you're comfortable. The next question is from Anna, and it's, how did you and your BFF, the video editor Christine, meet? I'd enjoy seeing you two conversing about your channel online. It would be fun to watch. Yes, it would be very fun to watch. Okay, so first off, when I first started my channel 3 years ago, Christine would edit all my videos for me. And she did that for 2.5 years. Thank you so much, Christine. I began playing with editing for our Pennsylvania road trip. So those vlogs were edited by me. And then I slowly took over the editing. Not because I wasn't happy with her. I am so appreciated and I love that she did it. And it has been a challenge for me to learn it and figure it out and stuff. But there was a reason why it became more me, and I'll get into that in a bit. Okay, so how did we meet? We met our first year of college at my second college. So we met the fall of 1998. So now I'm aging myself. And we were assigned the same dorm. We were not roommates, but we were just in the same dorm. And at this dorm, we spent a week, 2 weeks in this dorm. And then we were approached about, would we be interested, like the whole dorm was approached about, would we be interested in moving from this building to this building? And so we were joking, like Christine and I reminiscing, we're joking that we moved from the basement to the palace. And I mean, literally, we moved from the main floor of one building to the third floor of another building, and a much nicer building. So it was really a rundown building to a much nicer building. And we don't really know exactly why all of a sudden, 2 weeks into the school year, they offered this to us, and we did. But it was during that move that we really kind of got to know each other, because then our rooms were closer to each other. And I said to Christine, we were just talking on the phone the other night, and I said to her, so how, other than I know that this is where we met, do you remember what our first interaction was? Because I have no idea. And she's like, well, I don't fully remember. However, I do remember this. And she said, remember the whiteboards that we had on our doors in the old dorm? I said, yes. Apparently, I left a note on her door, kind of a coded message, I don't know, that she understood what I was saying, but other people that reading it wouldn't understand it. And then I signed a nickname, not the Jane nickname that I use, but another nickname. And she's like, I have no idea who this is. And then during the move process is when she figured out that I was the person that left this note. And she was like, that's awesome that, so we were kind of joking that we kind of have our own secret language right from the beginning, because apparently I left this note, she understood it, nobody else would, and we just really connected. And it's amazing. There's kind of two funny parts about that. Is one, I thought, well, I'm the more introverted one, she is much more the extroverted. So I was like, it had to be her coming up and initiating conversation with me for a friendship to bloom, because it would not have been me. But it turns out it was me in a way. However, it was me through a note to her. That is like so me that I initiated, but I didn't initiate in person. Like that's, yeah. And then the second funny thing about this is, or the amazing God thing about this is, if we had not been assigned to the same dorm, we probably would have never met. We could have gone through college never meeting because we had absolutely no classes that overlapped or together. And I think the other thing that helped us, that reason we connected, is we were both in our second year of college, but our first year at this college, we'd both done a year somewhere else and then transferred here. Whereas majority of other people in our dorm were freshmen completely and like right out of high school. So we were a year older than everybody else, other than the RAs that, you know, were in their second, third year, right? Maybe even fourth year at the time. So yeah. And we have been friends since 1998. No, do not ask me to do the math because I don't want to think about how long. But I've known her for more than half my life. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. Did I answer about the... Oh, will we interact in person? So... I used to, because she edited all the videos, there used to be little comments would come on the screen that BFF approves or BFF says, or, you know, she would have something to say. But because I edit now, she doesn't get that opportunity to do that. So that is why those don't happen anymore. The other reason they don't happen anymore is Christine has been diagnosed with cancer and is going through chemo treatment. So for me to take on the editing of the videos, really like the timing just worked perfectly. It had not been planned that way. I just thought I'll play around with this vlog and try it and see what happens. And as I found a program that was working for me and I was learning it, so then, you know, I slowly took it on as she was going through everything and is going through everything. So I would ask that you would please pray for Christine and keep her in your prayers because she could really use it right now. Then Robin asked, can you give me some Canadian Christian fiction authors? Okay, I really had to think about this. When I first read this question, the first one that came to mind was Darlene L. Turner. She is from London, Ontario, and I have a really good friend who actually knows her personally. I have never met Darlene, but so I knew she was Canadian. She's the first one I thought of. She writes suspense. Majority of her books are published with love-inspired suspense, and she has another book coming out this summer, which is her first full-length novel, also through love-inspired. But yeah, and I really enjoyed a lot of her books. I would like to read her complete list, but I think I still have 3 more books plus the new one that's coming out. So she's the first author I immediately thought of. And then I was like, I need to look and see. And then I discovered that Kimberly Ray Jordan is Canadian, and I have read quite a few of her books on Kindle Unlimited a number of years ago. I have not read any recently. I really should fix that. But yeah, she's from Manitoba. Then I discovered that Susan Ann Mason is from Ontario. I did not know she was Canadian. I know she has books set in Canada, but I did not realize she was Canadian. Then Sandra Orchard. I've read a couple of her books. Then ones I haven't read is Rachel McMillan. I have one of her books on my shelf to read. Sarah Davidson. I have not read any of hers. And she did a novella with Darlene L. Turner just this past Christmas, but I have not read that book yet. And another one that I've talked about quite a bit recently, but I just found out she was Canadian as well, is Christine Hill Shantz. She has a debut novel coming out in June called The Lawyer and the Laundress, which I am so excited about because it's set in Canada. It's a marriage and convenience story with a lawyer. Like, it just, yeah, I'm really excited about that one. So there are 7 Canadian authors that I know of, but honestly, I don't pay attention a lot to where the author's from. So there could be more that I have read that I'm just not familiar with. Okay, then she also asked, can you tell me the name of the Christian fiction series that you read that went through one of the Psalms? Okay, so I only have book 2 physically, but that is the Psalm 23 Mysteries by Debbie Vigay. Book number 2 is I Shall Not Want. Book number 1 is The Lord is Our Shepherd. No, The Lord is My Shepherd. And book number 1 follows Cindy, who is a church secretary who goes in to work one day and finds a dead body in the sanctuary. She screams, and Jeremiah, the rabbi from the synagogue next door, comes running to find out what's going on. Then the two end up starting to kind of figure out what's going on and working with the police to try to solve this case. Then you meet like Cindy's co-workers at the church, and the stories just keep going. There are supposed to be 23 books in this series, and each book is a title, like a line from the Psalm 23. And so, as I said, book 1 is The Lord is My Shepherd, I Shall Not Want, I Lie Down by Pastures, right, beside still waters. Like, that's the name of each of the books. I absolutely loved this series when I first read it, like when I first discovered it. Each book does end on a cliffhanger, and so it's like, I want the next book now. And you are really following Cindy and Jeremiah throughout the whole series, and they're friends, and you get to know more people, like on the police force and stuff, and people they work with, different things, right? But you really get to know these characters, like the main characters that are throughout this book, or the series. Now, my excitement for the series has kind of died down because the books are not publishing when we were promised they would be published. And things happen, you know, the authors had some personal stuff going on, and so I understand, but it's also ruined my excitement for the books because there's been years between different books. At this point in time, I think the most recent book published is 20, I want to say, and I got that in September and I haven't read it yet. Because, as I said, like, I'm just not, and each book ends on a cliffhanger. So I really just want to binge the series when the whole series is released. Because I was doing that for the first, I think I found it when it had 4 books to the series, maybe. And so when, you know, I waited for book 5 and 6 to come out, and then I went back and read from the beginning so that, you know, everything was fresh. And every time I read it, I find something new or like a little clue that I did not pick up on before. Because each book does focus on like one case or mystery or something. This is like with a dog. And obviously you can kind of see the dog prints at a magic show. But there is also a storyline that's continuing throughout, both with the characters' personal lives, but also there's a mystery they're trying to solve and figure out. And yeah, so I have really enjoyed it, and I really would like to reread it again. Okay, then Celestia asks, has your reading taste or preferences or reading habits changed since starting book 2? Okay, so my immediate thought was my reading habits have changed in 2 ways. I read a lot more physical than I did. When I got my Kindle back 2013, 12, I don't even know when I got my Kindle. When I got my original Kindle, I had the Kindle keyboard, so it was very, very early on in the Kindle's life. I read strictly Kindle. I had whatever physical books I had on my shelf were like the same physical books that I'd had for years. Very little new was coming in. Now, I love having the physical book for multiple reasons. I can hold it up and show it. I don't have to worry about inserting a picture. I just can look at it. But I love reading a physical book and watching the bookmark move and seeing the progress. Yes, on my Kindle, I get like the percentage number and stuff, but it's not the same. And I love just holding it physically. So that is the one difference that I thought of. The other one is I used to binge read series all the time. I would start a series and then I would continue it. Yeah, I don't binge read as much, and I really want to get back to it because I loved it. Once I find like a set of characters that I really like, I want to follow. That's why I love series so much that follow same characters, or you've met a character and then you continue on with their story in the next book. I love that. And so yeah, that's the biggest difference is I do not binge as much as I used to. Then Caitlin asked, do you remember what book first hooked you on the romantic suspense genre? I do not remember what book it was specifically. However, it has to be a Terry Blackstock or a D. Henderson. It is definitely one of those authors for sure. And I remember reading Terry Blackstock back in the early 2000s and waiting for the next book in the series to come out. But then I also discovered the O'Malley series by D. Henderson around the same time. So I don't know which one was the first one, but it's definitely one of those authors for sure. Okay, then she says, what book was outside your typical genre that you absolutely loved? Okay, I don't know. My first thought was it would be whenever I first read a historical fiction or historical romance per se. So I'm thinking that has to be The Christmas Bargain by Shanna Hatfield. That is the first like historical Western romance I remember reading and loving. And then again, I binged the rest of the series and looked for more historical fiction set in the Western. And so, yeah, that is the one that I think really, because I read very little historical fiction prior to that, and none that I read before that did I love. I just, yeah, that's okay. So I think that is the one. Okay, so that leads into another one of her questions. Do you have a favorite historical era to read about? Well, I love World War II, so 1940s. I do love like early 1900s with World War I. However, it's really Western, early 1900s, like late 1800s, early 1900s. That's really my favorite, I think. When, like indoor plumbing was just coming about, people were still traveling in carriages and buggies, and horses were like their main mode of transportation. That's my favorite. That is my favorite. Give me a, cowboy any day. So, yeah. Okay, then favorite movie. Okay, I love musicals. And the two musicals that I say are my favorites are The Music Man and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Like, I love both of those. I can watch them over and over again. I also really like White Christmas, but I can't watch it as much, and I don't like to watch it not Christmas time, obviously. And so, yeah. And they praise snow in that book, or that movie. So, yeah. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, The Music Man. Then, on more contemporary, like nowadays, I love the movie Letters to Juliet with Julia Stiles. Is that her? No. Who's in that movie? It's not. Is it Amanda? I'm blanking. I haven't seen it for a while. Amanda Seyfried. Yes. I love that movie. Okay, then Amanda says, others may have asked these, but your favorite book of all time? Amanda, How do I choose one book? I do not have one book. And there's no way I'm going to try to list one book. So, okay. So, historical. No Ocean Too Wide by Carrie Taransky. I just loved this story so much. Like, yeah. So it starts in London, England in 1909. And then it comes to Canada for parts of the story. And this opened my eyes to a time period in history that I didn't know anything about, or like incidents that happened that I knew nothing about. And I loved it. Another book that I've loved is Beneath the Surface by Lynn H. Blackburn. Now, this is book 1 of the series. My favorite book is actually book 2, In Too Deep, because I just love the couple in that book. But you can't, I mean, you could read it without reading this one first, but you really need to read this one to get to know the characters, because they're introduced in this one, to go into that one. Another one that holds really fond memories for me is Heart on the Line by Karen Whitmire. It was the first Karen Whitmire book I'd ever read, and I just fell in love with it, and I didn't care that it was book 2 in a series that I hadn't read book 1. I didn't know that at the time, but when I found, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, and I loved it so much. Another book that I remember loving which is on my shelf. I should have grabbed it. Where is it? It's another one of those that it's the book that introduced me to the author, and so it holds fond memories that way, and that is The Letter Tree by Rachel Fordham. I absolutely loved this book when I read it, and I had to pick up more by this author. And now I only have 2 books left on her backlist to read, and I would be 2-0. Like, I loved it that much. And then the book that I've reread the most, according to Goodreads, is The Christmas Bargain by Shannon Hatfield. It's a marriage to convenience story, and it is set like around Christmas, but like it really takes place over the course of a year, and then it ends at Christmas time. And it is about a father giving his adult daughter as payment for a loan to a banker. And they get married for propriety's sake, and they end up falling in love. And just watching that relationship bloom and how great Luke was. And yeah, I love that book. Okay, then she asks, favorite videos on your channel that you have done? So, I really enjoy doing Do I Know My Bookshelf tag? And like kind of looking through and like, could I guess things correctly? I really enjoyed doing that video. Another tag that I really enjoyed doing was the telephone tag, where you had to match book covers and kind of carry things on. Because when I did that video, I think because I did that video twice, and when I did it, I had like all my books on the floor and looking at the covers and can this go with that? And it was a real mess, but it was really fun to do. Another video that I really enjoy doing, or videos I really enjoy doing, is playing my TBR game to create my TBR. Because I've always been a TBR reader. I would always have a running list of, okay, so I'm going to read this book, and then I'm going to read this book, and then I'm going to read this book, and then I'm going to read this book. And once I'm done with this book, then I'm going to add this book on and continue through the list. Usually it was, like this is the start of a series, so then these books would be the rest of the series so that I could binge the series. I've always been a TBR reader. So playing my TBR game and picking it that way is really fun. Even if the game doesn't go the way I want it to go, a lot of the time. It makes me pick books that I wasn't planning on reading that month, but they're fun. Okay, Favorite place you have traveled? Again, how do you pick one place? As I said, we've been to PEI, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Utah, Arizona, St. Louis, Iowa, Indianapolis, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Florida, Atlanta, like North Carolina, South Carolina, Maine, Vermont, like we've been to a lot. And then overseas into England, Ireland. Yeah, so we've been to a lot of places. And majority of the places, I would totally go back in a heartbeat. There are only a couple places, and it's really not even like a place per se, like maybe one little community on one of our trips that I'd be like, I don't need to go back there again. Majority of places, I would totally go back. As I said, I would love to go back to PEI, but the one that kind of, my most recent, well, no, I don't know. One thing I have discovered is I am not a huge outdoorsy person. I don't want to go for hikes. I don't want to, like, that's not an everyday occurrence for me, whatever. But when we're on vacation, I love, or we both love, to drive around nature and walk in nature. Like, we went to Acadia National Park in Maine, absolutely loved it. And, we'd park and do one of the trails and stuff, but we're not like hikers. So get the easy trail and just looking at the scenery. Or we went to Zion National Park in Utah. Beautiful. Loved it. One that really like more recent, one of the vlogs, we drove the Blue Ridge Parkway. Amazing. Like, that is some of our fondest memories. And we did the Fred Meyer Sculpture Gardens in Grand Rapids, Michigan for our anniversary last year. No, two years ago? Is it only 2 years ago? And loved it. Like, it was so relaxing to just walk around and be outside in nature when it's a nice day. I don't want to be out when it's raining. And then when we went to Myrtle Beach, we went to Brook Green Gardens that's just outside Myrtle's Inlet. Again, it's a sculpture and gardens, and just loved it. Like, it was such a fun experience. So I don't have a favorite place, but, well, yeah. Now, when I think vacation for repeats, we have been to the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington, Kentucky 3 times. And I think that's the only place that we have done multiple times at it, because we went when we drove down to Kentucky. Like, we went to Bowling Green to see the Corvette factory because my husband loves cars. That is his passion. And he makes weather stripping for the Corvette and has for years. Like, that's his part in the factory, like where his cell works on that. They do other parts in other cells. And so we had to go to the Corvette factory. And so we went there. And on that trip, we stopped at the Kentucky Horse Park in Lexington. Then we drove down to Florida with my mother-in-law to go visit her brother Andrew's uncle. And on our way, we stopped and spent a day at the horse park. Then when we did the road trip to North Carolina through the Smoky Mountains and stuff, on our way home, we stopped at the horse park. So that is the one that I can remember that we've been to the most, together. The other one that I know I visited the most is Disney World. Me and my husband have been there twice. We spent a week there, just us, and then a couple years ago we went with friends just to Orlando, and then we did a couple days at Disney World. But growing up as a kid, we went a few times. I would say like a handful. We didn't go a ton, but we went a handful. So that's probably the place I visited the most, other than visiting family in England. But yeah, and I love England. I loved England. Like, part of our bus tour, we went to the Stonehenge, and again, we're just walking around outside and looking at the scenery. Like, yeah, loved it. Okay, and then she asked, what other hobbies do you have outside of reading? So I've already answered that. That's digital scrapbooking. Really. Okay, then on Instagram, the questions I got is, oh, Sue. Okay, so this is a real life friend. And she says, do you have an absolute favorite series? How do I pick one series? Like, yeah. Okay, so I'm not picking one series. I can't do it. So let me grab some books. So let's start with the books that I do not own physically. And obviously I have to say The Hardman Holidays by Shannon Hatfield, which book one is The Christmas Bargain. And then we have The Christmas Token and A Christmas Dream. And I cannot remember the rest of the books in that series. But it is a Western historical setting in, I want to say, Oregon, Pendleton, or Pendleton. Why can I not think of the name off the top of my head? But yeah, as I said, I've read book one 4 times. I love that series. Another series that I have read multiple times is The Christensen Family by Susan May Warren. My favorite of that series is Eden and Jace's story, which is book 2, It Had to Be You. I love that one, but really, I really enjoy the whole family and following the characters. Then, I love series, okay? And so then we have the Sunrise at Normandy series, The Sky Before Us, The Sea Before Us, The Sky Above Us, and The Land Beneath Us by Sarah Sundin. I absolutely loved this series, with book 3 being my favorite, but I still loved this series. We are following 3 brothers through World War II, and something happens before they ship off to war where it really fractures their relationship, and then we're following their stories, and do they come together? Can they repair their brotherly relationship? And will they survive the war? I loved it. Then, No Ocean Too Wide by Carrie Taransky. That is book 1, and then is a duology. Book 2 is No Journey Too Far. Again, I love this. We are following a family. It's about siblings that get separated, and the oldest siblings goes in search of her younger siblings. And so the story does not end in book 1. We pick up with book 2 and kind of get the rest of the story. And another romantic suspense, which I've already talked about. The Dive Team Investigations by Lynn H. Blackburn. Book 1 is Beneath the Surface. Book 2 is In Too Deep. And book 3 is One Final Breath. So this is the series that introduced me to Lynn H. Blackburn. Like this book in particular. And then I had to read more. Like, I just love her characters and the way they interact and the group, and the suspense just kept me invested as well. Like, I love her writing so much. I have read this full series twice, and each time all 3 books were 5 stars for me. Like, I just love them. And the other ones I've already mentioned. The Heart and the Line by Karen Whitmire. Love it. So, okay. Then Christine asked, when are you coming to Alberta? Well, I don't know. I would love to come, but due to the health, kind of everything's up in the air, schedules, meshing, just Yeah. But I would love to. I'm there in my head. I am there in my head. Okay. And then, I've just answered this already. What is your favorite destination to visit in a book setting? Really? Western. I love books set in Texas. That is somewhere I want to go at some point. And then her second question is the favorite destination in real life. I've talked about that. Okay. Then Lucy asked, are you more of a dog person or a cat person? Neither. Yeah, I am neither. We did have dogs growing up. But I always considered it my parents' dog or my brother's dog, depending on which dog it is. It was not my dog. I would pet it, I would sit with it, but yeah, not my thing. The one I remember the most, or the two I remember the most, they were golden doodles. No, because that's my brother's dog. That's not a small dog. More of a poodle style. I don't know what they were called. I have no idea. Small dogs, anyways. That is what I remember the most. That is what I'm comfortable around. If you're going to get a dog, I do not like big dogs. My brother has 2 golden doodles that scare me, personally. Like, they're stronger than I am, and yeah, please stay away. And I've never been a cat person. Not a fan. I actually don't know if I can be around cats. When I'm over at a friend's house that has cats, I start to really kind of notice that I'm not breathing the same. But my husband is allergic to cats, so we will not have one at our house, so I don't need to find out if I am or not. So our pets we have fish. I grew up with, my dad always had a fish tank as long as I can remember, and then we had the dog. But so we had a tropical fish tank, and then apparently my husband had tropical fish in his bedroom when he was a kid through his teen years. Then he got rid of the fish tank, didn't have it for a number of years, and then one Christmas I decided, oh, we should get a fish tank. So I bought him a 10-gallon tank. Well, that was kind of a mistake, because that 10-gallon tank has grown and grown and grown. We now have 2 40-gallon tanks upstairs. We have one in our dining room, one in our living room, and then we have a goldfish bowl in our basement. And so we have the nice, pretty tropical fish that swim, get along with each other in our living room. And then we have what is called the aggressive tank in our dining room, where the fish are much bigger, like we're talking 6-8 inches long. And you've got to be careful what you put with them, because they will pick on each other and possibly eat each other. And they're aggressive for a reason. Like, they're called aggressive for a reason. That I consider my husband's tank, and the other one is my tank, because I like these fish, he likes this fish. He does all the work though. They're really his tanks, but those are our pets. Okay, then she asked, do you have any hobbies outside of reading and booktube? I've already answered that question. Okay, then she asked, do you have a life verse? And if so, please share it. So, I would say my life verse is James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, seek God, and it will be given to him. No, that is not the right wording. If any of you lacks wisdom, let me grab a Bible. If any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. I remember being in college, I don't even know what year, maybe my 3rd year, I don't really know for sure, and I was frustrated one day, and I was talking to my parents on the phone, and just like expressing this frustration, whatever I was experiencing at the time, I don't know what it was, and I remember my dad giving me this verse, and saying, like, seek him, look for him, and it has just stuck with me for years since then. And yeah, that is what I would consider my favorite verse. I love the book of James, but really just that verse, just, if any of you lacks wisdom, seek God, who gives generously. Like, yeah. And so that is where we're going to end the question and answers. That is all the questions. Now, I am going to do a giveaway to celebrate not only 3 years on BookTube, but I'm also at 1,100 subscribers, creeping up on the 1,200 subscriber mark. And I did not do anything for the 1,000 subscribers or anything. And if you have stuck around this whole way through the video, then you are the only ones that know about this giveaway, because I am not putting it in the thumbnail, I'm not putting it in the title, anything like that. You have to watch the video to hear about it. So, because I'm Canadian, the easiest way for me to do this is through an Amazon wish list. So, I will pick a winner from the comments below. Now, to enter, you need to be able to have, like, not to enter. To enter, put a celebration confetti emoji in the comments, and that will enter you into this giveaway. Once I pick the winner, you need to be able to send me your Amazon wish list. You can send it to me through Instagram or through email. So once I reach out to the winner, I will tell you one of those, send me your wish list through that way, and I will pick a book and send it to you. That is the easiest way for me to send you something, is through Amazon. Okay. So this giveaway will be open from today, the date this video is going up, March the 25th, until Tuesday, April the 1st. Then I will pick a winner on April 2nd, and hopefully I will get that video posted either April 2nd or April 3rd. It all depends on my computer. Once I film it, right, get it up. So it will be posted very quickly at the beginning of April after the giveaway closes. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you've learned a little bit more about me and haven't been bored with my rambling, because I have talked a lot. This is a long video. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.